All right, guys, I'm going to help get you started on the activity we're going to work on today, which is called graphing patterns. So hopefully at this point, you have already moved this activity into Notability from Shobi. If you haven't done that yet, you should pause this video and do that right now. And then you want to split screen your Notability with this activity pulled up with this video so that as I show you things in the video, you can write it down on your sheet. Because I'm going to get you started and do number 1 with you, and then you will complete the rest of this activity. All right, so throughout this activity, we're going to be looking at sets of equations and looking for what they have in common, and then graphing them all on the same line or on the same graph and making some observations. So as you look at number 1, it says consider the following group of equations. So you have 4 equations in this group, and A asks what feature does this group of equations have in common? Be as specific as possible, meaning we want to give as many things as they have in common. All right, so as we look at this group, I notice a couple things. The first thing I notice is that they all start with y equals. And you don't need to write incomplete sentences, but just make sure you are specific. All right, I also notice that they all have 3 as the coefficient before x. Which we talked the other day about how the coefficient before x is what the slope is. So we could also say that they all have a slope of 3. And those are kind of the only things I notice about it. Maybe you found something else, that's great. You can add that to the list. But those are the things that I notice that they have in common. All right, so that's enough for part A. Now I'm going to move down to part B. And part B asks me to graph each equation in this group on the same coordinate plane, which you see I've given you there. Identify the slope and the y-intercept of each line to help you graph, and then draw each line on the graph with the color indicated. So you're going to end up having 4 different lines on that graph in 4 different colors. All right, so as I start with the red line, that's equation 1. So I see that right here. And quick review from what we talked about the other day. Remember that the coefficient before x, the number that's before x, is the slope, and the constant is the y-intercept, because we looked at that equation, y equals mx plus b, which we're now calling slope-intercept form. Before we called it function form, and function form and slope-intercept form are the exact same thing. And in this equation, that m, that number before x, is the slope, and the constant is the y-intercept. So that's going to be really important to complete this activity. So for the red line, the slope is 3, or 3 over 1, and the y-intercept is 0, or 0, comma 0, because I always want to write my y-intercept as an ordered pair. All right, so remember, this is what we did the other day. We always put the y-intercept on the graph first. So I'm going to plot 0, 0, and again, make sure you have red ink chosen here. And then I'm going to count the slope. So quick review of slope like we've talked about. Slope is the rise over the run. So the top number tells me how much I move up or down, and the bottom number tells me how much I move right to left. And if I count up, that's positive, right is positive, down is negative, left is negative. So I need to keep all those things in mind when I count the slope. So this is 3 over 1. So since the 3 is positive, I'm going to count up 3. And the 1 is positive as well, so I'm counting right 1. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, right 1, and plot a point. 1, 2, 3, right 1, But remember, I also in this case could think about the slope as -3 over -1, which would then also be counting down and left. And that would also work. You don't have to do that, but it would also give you something on the same line. So down 1, 2, 3, left 1. You can see that these points are on the same line. So that helps me there. All right, so then I'm going to connect all these and make my nice straight line. Make sure you make your line straight. If you hold it down, it makes it straight. And I'm gonna go ahead and go back, and I'm just gonna erase some of these loops here just so they don't get in our way. I was just making those to help you see how we were counting. You can leave them there or erase them, whatever's better for you. All right, so there's the red line. Now I'm gonna switch to blue ink and I'm gonna graph that equation 2. So for equation 2, the slope is also 3 or 3 over 1 because that is the coefficient to x, the number before x. And this time the y-intercept is 0, 4. So I'm going to put 0, 4, and remember you count your slope from that point. So it's on the same graph here, but now with blue, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Up 3, right 1. So up 1, 2, 3, right 1. Or I could also go down 3, left 1, down 3, left 1. And again, you only need 2 points to make your line. I always like to make a few more points just to make sure I know exactly where it goes. And also, to record this video, I'm in an app different than Notability, so it doesn't make my line straight for me like Notability does. But I can get it pretty much straight, but the more dots help me out there. All right, there's my blue line. Now I'm going to move on to my green line. So I'm looking at equation 3. Now this one's a little bit tricky. Notice they don't have the x coming first. So I'm going to rewrite this as 3x plus -2, or you could say -2, because I want to get that x term coming first. So again, the slope is the coefficient, or the number before the x. So that's 3 again, or 3 over 1. This time the y-intercept is 0, -2. So I'm going to put 0, -2 on my graph. And again, from that point with green, I'm going to count my slope. So up 3, right 1, up 3, right 1, up 3, right 1, or again, down 3, left 1. Would also work. So here's my green line. Hopefully you're starting to notice something about all these lines. All right, the last one's purple. Again, I told you I'm using an app different than Notability to make this video, so I don't have the option of purple, so I'm gonna do black, but do make sure you choose purple in Notability. I'm looking at that 4th line, equation 4. So again, the slope is the coefficient, so it is still 3 or 3 over 1. This time the y-intercept is 0, -5. Don't lose that negative sign. So I'm going to put 0, -5 on the graph, but my slope is still the same. I'm counting up 3, right 1, up 3, right 1. And again, I like to get a couple points on there to really make sure my line's in the right spot. I'm going to connect those all with a nice straight line. And now you should have 4 lines all on the same graph in 4 different colors. So I've finished part B. And my last part for this question is part C, which says, what patterns do you observe in the graph? So hopefully you know the language parallel and perpendicular. That's going to be important for us. I think you've learned that in the past. Parallel lines are lines that never intersect, and so that's what these are. So you can say the lines are parallel, or you could say they never cross or intersect. Okay. I also notice they all have the same slope. Okay, I can also say they all have different y-intercepts because I want to be as specific as I can here. So I want to make several observations. But that's probably pretty good here. Oh, you know what? Actually, I would also add that they are all rising. And I would also say that they are all steeper than the parent function. All right, that's probably good. They're not all shifted up or shifted down, so I can't really say anything about that because they all have different y-intercepts. But I've made quite a few observations there. And again, you want to make as many observations as you can. All right, so now I'm done with the first problem. What you're going to do then is on the second problem, you're going to follow the same steps, but with a new set of lines, but you're still going to graph them all on the same graph. And so you're either going to be looking at sets of 4 lines or sets of 2 lines as you work through these problems. And after you do a couple, I'm going to ask you to make observations. So do the best you can in making the observations. This will be a completion grade, and so I'm just looking to see that you try, that you answer every problem, that I can see that you put effort forth. But if you don't get the observation exactly right, don't worry, we're going to talk about it next week and work through it together. So just do the best you can in completing this activity, and this will be your assignment for today. When you finish, turn it back into Shobi, and then enjoy your weekend. Have a great day.